Hmm. Now, Dan, what do I do if there's nobody here at 10 o'clock?
No.
What do I do if there's nobody here at 10 o'clock?
We just,
Really?
yep, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Love you.
Bye. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Boker Tov. Um, we're going to begin our service. As you know, I'm substituting for Rabbi Dan, my son, who's had some work done on his teeth, and I'll do the best I can to fill in for him. You're all welcome. Right now, Marcia, it's you and me, but eventually maybe we'll have some others. We're going to begin on page 186 with Modeh Ani. I offer thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul in me in mercy. How great is your trust. Modeh Ani lefanecha melech el chai v'kayam, shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. Good morning, Howard. Shabbat Shalom. Please now turn to page 192 for Matovu. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Vani berov chastecha, Ahavo vehetecha, Eshtachave, Eshtachave, El Heichal, Kodshecha, Beiratecha. Adonai ahavti meon beitecha, umekom mishkan kevodecha, vani eshtachave v'yechra'a, evrecha lifnei Adonai osi, vani tefilati, lecha Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chastecha, Ahaneni be'emet yishecha. Please turn to page 194, and we'll read together the bottom paragraph in English on 194. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them is wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar umafli la'asot. Page 196. Let's again read these very beautiful English renderings of the Hebrew. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol basar ish. Page 198 and the two up until page 202 are the Birchot HaShachar, the morning blessings. If you're able to stand, please do so. If not, it's perfectly fine for you to remain seated. We'll chant them in Hebrew together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina, lehavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Okay.
200. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamein. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish shalomim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yaif koah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamalvir sheina meinai, utenu ma'afapai. 202. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Shasan
b'tselem Elohim.
Elohim Baruch
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Shasani Ben Chorim
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Shasani Israel
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Contain
Ozer Yisrael b'tifchara.
Sipara.
Page 204. You excuse me if I have to keep looking at my very detailed list. It's a complicated process. Page 204, the bottom of the page. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai.
Amalave Torah Ve'amod Yisrael. Elu Devarim Shein Allah Shalom.
Okay. Page 206. In the middle of the page, we'll again read together. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. Page 212. We begin Pesukei de Zimra. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu, Baruch oseh v'reshit. Baruch omer ve'oseh. Baruch gozer u'mekayim. Baruch merachem al haaretz. Baruch merachem al habriot. Baruch mishalem sachar tov lireav. Baruch hala'ad v'kayam lanetzach. Baruch podeh umatzil. Baruch shemo. Bishvachot uvizmirot negadelcha uneshabechacha unefohercha v'nazkir shimcha v'namlichacha malkeinu Eloheinu yachid chei olamim melech mishubach umefoar adei ad shemo hagadol Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal batish bachot. Page 214. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat tov lehodot la'Adonai ulezamer lishimcha elyon ulezamer lishimcha elyon lehagid baboker chastecha V'emunatecha balelot, alei asor, v'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor, ma gadlu masecha Adonai, meod amkuhu machshevotecha, ish bar lo yavin etzod, Lo yavin etzod. We'll sing together. Tzadik katamar. Tzadik katamar yifrach ke'erez balavanon yiskeh. Shetulim beveit Adonai bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yenuvon beseva deshenim Verananim yiyu lehagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo havlatabo. Didn't have enough time to warm up this morning. Okay, page 215 and on to 216. We'll do Ashrei. We can do it all together. Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yihalalucha selah. Ashrei ha'am shekachalo. Ashrei ha'am shadonai Elohav. Tehillah David, aromimcha Elohai hamelech. V'yavarcha shimcha liolam ba'ed. B'chol yom avarcheka. V'yalala shimcha liolam ba'ed. Gadol Adonai umhulal me'od. V'likdulato ein cheker. Dor l'dor yishabach ma'asecha. U'gevurotecha yagidu. Hadar kevod hodecha. V'divrei nifleotecha asicha. Vezuz norotecha yomeru, ugedulatcha asaprena, zecher avtuvecha yabiu, v'tzidkatcha yiranenu, chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim ugdo chased, tov Adonai lakol, V'rachamav al kol ma'asav. Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha. V'chasitecha yivarchucha. Kivod malchutcha yomeru. Ugevuratcha yidaberu. Leodia lifnei hadam gevurotav. Uchevod hadar malchuto. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim. Umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Somech Adonai lechol hanoflim. V'zokef lechol hakafufim. Einei chol elecha yisaberu. V'ata noten lahem et ochlam be'ito. Poteach et yadecha. Umaspia lechol chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai bechol dorachav. V'chasid bechol ma'asav. Karov Adonai lechol korav. Lechol asher yikra'uhu v'emet. Ritzon yoreav ya'aseh. V'et Shabbatam yishma v'yoshiem. Shomer Adonai et kol ohavav. V'et kol harishayim yashmid. Tilat Adonai yedaber pi. V'varech kol basar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed. V'anachnu nevarech ya. Me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. Page 218. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. El Bekadsho. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Birki Uzo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Big Urotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kerov Uzo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Beteka shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Bemilim b'nevel v'chinor. Hallelujah, 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 betov umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, bemilim veugav. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 betziltzele shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betziltzele truah. Kol haneshama tehallel. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel. Hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel. Hallelujah. I'm warming up a little bit. Slowly. Okay. Page 219. Nishmat kol echai. Tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. V'ruach kol basar. Tifaer v'titromem. Zichrecha malkeinu tamid. Min ha'olam v'yad ha'olam atayel. Ein lanu melech ela ata. Elohei harishonim v'ha'acharonim. Elohai kol briot. Adon kol toladot. המהולל ברוב התשבחות, המנהג עולמו בחסד ובריאותיו ברחמים, ואדוני לא ינום ולא יישן, המעורר ישנים, והמקיץ נרדמים, והמשיח אילמים, והמתיר אסורים, והסומך נופלים, והזוקף כפופים לך לבדך, אנחנו מודים. Let's read together the paragraph on the bottom of page 219. Let the soul of everything alive bless your name, Adonai, our God, and the spirit of all flesh glorify and exalt your name forever, O sovereign. Transcending space and time, you alone are God. We have no sovereign besides you, God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute, and God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. Now let's turn to page 222, the top of the page. Ha'el b'tatzumot uzecha, Hagadol b'chvod shemecha, Hagibor lanetzach v'hanora, b'noraotecha, Hamelech hayoshev al kisei, Ram v'nisa, Shochen ad maharom, V'kadosh shemo, V'chatuv rananu tzadikim ba'Adonai, La'yisharim nava tehila, B'fi yisharim titalal, U'v'divrei tzadikim titbarach, Uvilshon chasidim titromam, uvekerev kedoshim titkadash, uvemakalot revevot amcha beit Yisrael, berina yitpoer shimcha malkenu, b'chol dor vador. 223. Yishtabach shimecha La'ad Malkenu, Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VeHaKadosh, B'Shamayim uVa'aretz, Ki Lechano Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Shir u'Shvacha, Hallel ve'Zimra, Ozu Memshala Netzach, Gedula u'Gvura Tila ve'Tiferet, Kedusha u'Malchut, Brachot ve'hodot me'ata v'yad olam. Baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol batishbachot el hahodot Adon haniflaot habocher b'shirei zimra melech el Olamim. Page 224, the Chatzi Kaddish. You may rise if you're able. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah V'yalma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael Ba'agala u'vizman karif V'yimeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Leol Me'almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yit'aleh V'yitalal. Shemei de Kudisha, Barichu, Leila min kol birchata, Veshirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damihiran bi'alma, V'meru, Amen. 226. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Page 227. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat kriyat Shema lehamlicho belevav shalem uliyachdo belev tov uleavdo benefesh chafetza. Turn to page 230. In the middle of the page. Veha erinenu betoratecha v'dahabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha ve'yached levavenu li'ahava u'lira et shemecha v'lo nevosh v'lo nikalem v'lo nikashel le'olam va'ed ki v'shem kodshecha hagadol v'hanora matachnu nagila v'nismecha nagila v'nismecha b'yeshua techa. We gather the four corners of the talit, the four corners of the earth. Nothing in many ways could be more necessary in our time than V'havienu l'shalom. May arba kanfot haaretz, gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth. V'tolichenu kamamiut liartzenu, ki el poel yeshuot ata, uvanu v'acharta mikolam belashon, v'keiravtanu l'shimcha gadol, sela b'yehemet, leodot lecha uliachedecha b'yahava, Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'yamo Yisrael, b'yahava. 232. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Page 234. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadivarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchetavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'shearecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim leloechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem leElohim Ani Adonai Elohechem. And let's read on 236 the whole last paragraph so that those of us who have a talit will be able to participate in the mitzvah of kissing these tzitzit for all of us. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, v'amarta alehem, v'asu lahem tzitzit, al kanfei v'gdehem ledorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit, hakanaf betil techelet, v'haya lachem letzitzit, uri'item oto, u'zachartem et kol mitzvot Adonai, v'asitem otam, v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'yacharei einechem, asher atem zonim achareihem. Leman tizkaru v'yasitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lechem lelohim ani, Adonai Elohechem emet. I'll take a moment to just tell you something which, again, some of you may know and others may not. But coming as I am from travels in much of the Sephardic world, I've just been with my students in Greece, in Bulgaria, in Spain, in Portugal. One of the characteristics of Sephardi synagogues, which I don't want to say I've never seen in an Ashkenazi synagogue, but I think I have never seen in an Ashkenazi synagogue, is that they leave from this paragraph of the tzitzit, they leave a corner of the building of the synagogue unfinished. If there's stone that's covered with plaster, in that corner, the stone is not plastered over. If it's just a painted wall, that small piece of the wall, it might be about so big, foot by a foot, will be left unfinished as a sort of symbolic statement that until we reach the moment of perfection, everything that we do is unfinished. And if you think about it, it's actually a very beautiful concept for us, as individuals, because we tend to fall into the trap of believing in our own perfection, and that that everything needs to get done and be done in a perfect way. Leaving something physically undone as a reminder that we're imperfect is really quite a very powerful notion, and it's really striking. And of course, when Ashkenazi Jews travel in the Sephardi world, they say, "What did the painter forgot to do?" In other words, they have absolutely no conceptual framework to understand it. So here, where we gather the four corners of the talit, symbolically, we're really doing something very similar, because the moment that we're done with this, we put them back in their own private place. They're no longer together. And as you're going to see in a little while in the Haftarah this morning, we have a similar image of things being brought together to create a certain kind of symbol of unity for the future, recognizing that that's really not the way we're able to live, that the failure of the human being is our inability to keep the things together, sometimes even ourselves. Okay, so now we're going to continue with looks like 239, the top of the page. We can read together. Emet, there is no place where you are not. Even in the wilderness, there is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and we rejoice. Page 240. Mi chamocha Oelim Adonai, mi kamocha, nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot, osefele. Even though I am not a chazan, I want to just sing you a melody which was written decades ago in Camp Ramon of Poconos for this Shira Chadasha. It's a beautiful, simple melody. Shira Chadasha Shibechu Geulim Shimcha Al Sfat Hayam Yachad Kulam Ohodu V'himlichu v'amru Shira, 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 Shira Chadasha Shibechu Geulim L'Shimcha Al Sfat Hayam Yachad Kulam Ohodu V'himlichu v'amru Adonai Himloch Leolam Vahed Tzor Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Ufedei Chinumecha Yehuda v'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzivot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Page 242. If you're able to stand, please do so. We'll do the Amidah silently, and then we'll come back and we'll do some portions together. That may not be the way you always do it, but you'll forgive me for this morning being slightly out of order. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. The Amidah begins on 242 and concludes on 260. If you're still in the midst of the Amidah, please continue. Otherwise, you may turn back to page 244 and remain standing through the Kedusha, and then you may be seated. And please join me at home. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה, אדוני, מגן אברהם, ועזרת שרה, 246. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח, ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מחמך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. 248. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו. שנית, 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 שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גדלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גדלך. ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גדלך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גדלך. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. You may be seated. Let's sing together on the top of page 250. Yismachu. I've been told that normally you follow the Amidah different pages, which I just noticed, but it's the same Amidah. This is Shabbat morning number 1. You do one of these other ones. I'm sure the author will forgive us, and the rabbi, I hope. Okay, top of 250. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Aham Mekadeshei Shvi Shabbat Kulam Yispeu V'yitanku mituvecha Shabbat Yismechu V'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat V'korei oneg Shabbat Yismechu v'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Turn to page 258. We'll sing together Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Ubracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. Barcheinu Avinu kulanu ki echad Bior ponecha. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Ki Bior ponecha Natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chaim v'avat Chesed Utzedaka uvracha v'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova uveracha. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amecha Yisrael. V'chol eit uv'chol shah b'shlomecha. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha. Baruch Atah Adonai Hamavarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. You know, on page 260, there is a meditation that ends the Amidah formally, although it's, if I'm not mistaken, medieval, was added much later on. And I actually find it to be the most powerful of the whole Amidah Tefillah. It's a very personal prayer. And I'll read it in Hebrew and then let's read it together in English. Elohai nitzor lishoni meira. Usfatai midaber mirma. V'lim kalanai nafshi tidom v'nafshi ke'afar l'chol tihir. Petach libi b'toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha tirdof nafshi. V'chol ha'choshvim alai ra'a mehira chaper atzaltam v'kalkel machashavtam. Asay leman shemecha, asay leman yeminecha, asay leman kedushecha, asay leman toratecha. Leman yilchatzun yedidecha, Hoshia yeminecha ve'aneni. Let's read together in English. My God, guard my speech from evil, and my lips from deception. Before those who slander me, I will hold my tongue. I will practice humility. Open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue your mitzvot. As for all who think evil of me, cancel their designs and frustrate their schemes. Act for your own sake, for the sake of your power, for the sake of your holiness, for the sake of your Torah, so that your loved ones may be rescued. Save with your power and answer me. And now let's sing Oseh Shalom together. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Uyaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. I heard the other day, you may have heard this before, I'd never heard it before. Someone said that we should not be saying Yaseh Shalom. We should be saying E'eseh Shalom. I will make peace. You know, that it's too easy to sort of, or Na'aseh Shalom, we will make peace. It's too easy to sort of put this on some divine figure who has no control, obviously, over the human, over the certainly the evil instinct of the human being, that this job of peace is our work. And it's really fascinating if you go back into the Amidah to see the number of times that that word shalom appears. It's you could say it's frustrating to confront the fact that our tradition constantly is praying for peace, and it's elusive. As I said, last night, you just think about the last 100 years, just the last 100 years, out of all of the millennia. It's astounding, the millions of people who have been killed in war, aside from all of the gun violence and everything else. So this is the dark side of all of us, manifest on the biggest scale. And maybe, for the Jewish people, at least, we have these verses. Maybe we should start singing them in two different forms. We can have a partnership with God, but the real work we got to understand is in our hands. And it's in our hands. It's not just, these guys fighting over there and fighting over there, who we vote for, what policies we advance, how we speak in our communities, what we do to really to build the capacity for peace. Okay, that was not my sermon time. So now I see the reason why he likes getting to the Amidah in the 300s, because then you're right there in the Torah service. So let's turn to page 362. See whether that gets us to the right place. Very good. The funny thing is, my Siddur of your Siddurim has all these tabs in it because during COVID, you may recall, I substituted for Dan a couple of times when he got sick, and they didn't used to make these lists, so I had little markings, and I had them in the 300s, Marcia. So, I just wasn't watching. Page 362 for the service of taking the Torah out, which we will do only symbolically, but we can do all of the chanting in real terms. Page 362. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, v'ein k'maasecha, malachutecha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha v'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, Leolam va'ed. Adonai oz li'amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachamim heitiva birtzonecha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim ki v'cha levad batachnu melech elam v'nisa Adon olamim. Page 364. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Udevar Adonai mi Yerushalayim. 366. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'kedushato. You repeat after me. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Ladonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yachadav. Lecha Adonai Hagedula V'Hagevura V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod Ki Choho Bashamayim Uva Haaretz Ki Choho Bashamayim Uva Haaretz Lecha Adonai Hamamlacha V'yamid nahaseh lechol rosh. Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu. V'hishtachavu, V'hishtachavu, lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. Okay. So I'm going to share screen where I have found the beginning of our parasha. It should be, if you're watching on a computer, it should be big enough. And I'm not going to steal any of Ruth's thunder because she's giving a Torah study afterwards. But I'll read a little bit, and then I'll try and minimally comment about the Torah, go to the Haftarah, and try and pull the two pieces together. Hopefully, Ruth, you'll tell me if I'm in any way stepping on anything that you're going to do. The parasha is called Vayigash, which is usually translated as you see here, approached. But it's very interesting that that Rashi finds three different uses of the same word, although in each case it means to approach. Each of them has a very different context. One is to plead. One is to go to war. Another is to sort of to create an identity. So the Hebrew words contain in them a lot of power. In other words, this word vayigash, translated here as vayigash elav Yehuda, Judah approached him. He was approaching Joseph. It has a particular connotation, as you can hear. He's pleading. It's a supplication, and in these other contexts, the word is aggressive and powerful, and another, it's an approach. So that's one of the powers of the Hebrew language, is that you cannot determine a word solely by the definition of the word. You have to read the word in context. And if you think about it, it's a very good human lesson. We're often quick to judge each other on the basis of something immediate, and the context sometimes gets lost. Now, on the other hand, the university professors tried to use context as their excuse for not acting, for not being able to unequivocally say that the use of the language calling for the genocide of the Jewish people would be automatically a violation of the rules. So their excuse was that it depends on the context. So even the word context can be loaded. But here, what you see in terms of Hebrew language is something really quite fascinating. The other thing which struck me when I was reading the parasha in preparation for this morning, that, our whole treatment of the story of Egypt really focuses on the story that we tell at Pesach. And the story starts with slavery. But in this parasha, not only do you have the brothers describing Joseph, who they don't know who he is, but they say, Ki kamocha, in this verse, Ki chamocha kefaro, you are like Pharaoh. You're as high up as you can get. And the Pharaoh himself later on says something very similar to Joseph. We don't read that on Pesach. That is to say, we don't say that in the same country where we became enslaved, one of us rose to the top of the system. And even when the Pharaoh discovered who Joseph was, and we don't really know whether he knew all along or not. And think about this. Moses is raised in the Pharaoh's house. Where did his daughter pick up this baby except for the Pharaoh to know that that baby had to have belonged to the Hebrew? Just on a logical basis. So sometimes you may wonder. Last night I shared this beautiful picture from 1978 of my students from the Park Avenue Synagogue and Anwar Sadat at his villa in Alexandria. I often wonder whether it would not do us well to pay some tribute, as well as the opposite that we're very good at, to the many forces of the world that have kept us alive to this day. Because if you think about it, the Jewish people is so tiny that if our history was all as negative as we all think it is, there would be no way for us to be having this conversation. We would have gone out of business a long time ago. So it's just a passing thought. You'll see where it relates in the Haftarah. So let's have an aliyah together. We'll all say the brachot together. I'll chant the first three verses, and then we'll recite the brachot afterwards. So the brachot for the Torah are found on page 368. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach li'olam va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Vayigash elav Yehuda Vayomer Bi Adoni Yidaber na avdecha davar Bioznei Adoni V'yayichar apcha biavdecha Ki chamocha kifaro. You are like the Pharaoh. Adoni sha'al et avadav lemor hayesh lachem av o ach vanomer el Adoni yesh lanu av zaken vayeled zikunim katon ve'achiv meit vayivater hu levado leimo uliaviv Ahevo vatomer el avadecha horidu elai ve'ashmia eni ve'asima eni alav vanomer el Adoni lo yuchal hana'ar lazov et aviv ve'azav et aviv v'amet. Okay, let's do the final bracha. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah. The piece here, I just want to you may or may not remember this story or be familiar with it, but basically, here Joseph is being a little bit manipulative. He wants the brothers to leave Benjamin with him, the youngest brother, but he's trying to get the father to return. But finally, as Judah explains that if they leave this younger brother, who's the child of the same mother as their dead brother, who of course is Joseph. He knows who he is. They don't know who he is. It's really quite striking. By the way, one of the classical commentators says, how come they didn't recognize? He recognized them. How come they didn't recognize him? So the reason is the commentator says because when they threw him in the pit, he was a boy. He didn't have a beard. Now he's grown a big beard. So as a result, they really can't see who he is, which is interesting. The function in modern times, the beard is a sort of piece of cosmetics, if you will, but it really provides a disguise. Remember the Lone Ranger, would put that mask on. So it's a similar kind of thing. But what he does, which is really striking, let me see where it is. So here, the beginning of chapter 45, the Hebrew says, "V'lo yuchal Yosef lehit apek lechol hanitzavim." He couldn't stand everybody around. He knew that he had to reveal himself. He couldn't keep it up. The scene is so unbelievably emotional, right? Because he never, there's no anticipation of this happening. It's this amazing literary accident. So he asks everybody to go away. And then in the next verse, it says, Vayitain et kolo bebechi, vayishma'u mitzrayim, vayishma beit paro. The Hebrew is so much more powerful than the translation. It says, he gave up his whole voice to tears, to crying. And it was so loud, so powerful, that Yishma'u Mitzrayim, it's not that the translation says, so the Egyptians heard. That's not what the Hebrew says. The Hebrew says that Egypt heard. Egypt, not the Mitzrim, but Mitzrayim, the whole country. I mean, imagine the imagery to even imagine a sound that could be heard across the entire country. So his wailing was so powerful that the whole country heard him, and of course, the White House, the Beit Paro, heard him as well, which is really, astounding. And what did they hear him say? They heard him say, "Ani Yosef, Ha'od Avichai, I am Joseph. Is my father really still alive?" But you sort of just imagine the drama of that scene. In a certain sense, we're seeing, a tiny version of how powerful that encounter is when we watch when one of these hostages is returned to their family. And you can see and you can feel really in the eyes and the heart and the emotion of the body of those who are receiving a relative back that they cannot really believe that they are still alive. It's easier for the person who returns, but it's extraordinary, the emotion that is involved at that moment. It's as if a person has returned from the dead. So Joseph watching them, and of course they end up being terrified because they immediately assume he's going to punish them, which is really, quite an extraordinary scene. Now, I said that I wasn't going to steal any of Ruth's thunder, which I hope I haven't done, but I want to take us to the Haftarah. So the Haftarah, first of all, is from the prophet Ezekiel. Ezekiel, you may remember, is a way out prophet. He's the prophet who has the vision of the dry bones and the chariots. A lot of modern commentators think that he was a guy who used a lot of drugs. His imagery is really very psychedelic in many different ways. So whatever got him there, today he tells this. He speaks in God's name, and he creates an image. Again, I don't like the English translation that's here. He says in the second verse, "Ve'ata ben Adam, kach lecha eitz echad, uchetov alav liYehuda ulevinei Yisrael chavirav, ulekach eitz echad, uchetov alav liYosef eitz Ephraim, v'chol Beit Yisrael chavirav." So the Hebrew says, you can read the English, but the Hebrew says that God tells the prophet to take a tree, an eitz, and write on it, inscribe on it Judah's name and some reference to all of the children of Israel, Chaverav, his brethren, and then take a second tree and write on it the name of Joseph and his son Ephraim, and his brother Ephraim, and take also put the names of Beit Yisrael on it, and then take these trees, verse 17, V'karav otam echad el echad, lecha le'etz echad, v'hayu le'achadim biyadecha. Take these two trees and graft them to each other, I think would be a better translation. Graft them to each other and make of them one tree. In other words, create a symbol of unity. Don't allow the people to continue this process, which of course is the story of the brothers and Joseph, where the family splits internally and then experiences the potential consequences. Take the two branches. He's referring here to the northern tribes who separated off from the tribes of Judah, and bring them together in a symbolic form. And we know that when you take these two graftings, you put them together, you produce not just a new tree, you produce a new fruit, and something completely different occurs related to where it came from, but still really completely different. Very much like all of us. In other words, when you think about the fact, Heschel says that it's extraordinary that in the act of creation, God has made certain that there are no two people exactly the same. Even identical twins have something which is different one from the other. And we have millions and millions and millions and billions of people, all of whom are different from each other. So that's a symbol of the separation. But at the same time, you have a constant pull towards bringing people and the things that push them apart, pulling people together, trying to somehow take the imagery that we have in the Siddur, and we certainly have, in the parasha this morning, where this family is able to really come together in a miraculous kind of way, and here in the Haftarah in a symbolic way, in the creation of a new tree, a new fruit that will symbolize the unity of the people. And it's as we know in our time, this is no small accomplishment. We're very prone and not just tempted to build walls to separate. And here I would just say that if our generation has been given a task, it is a task to remedy the disparateness that exists between Israel and the Palestinians and maybe other Arab states. We are not allowed, we're not given the prerogative of putting our hands up in the air and saying there's nothing that can be done. That's not an accepted position of our tradition. And when we read portions like this in the Torah, they're here to sort of to tell us we got to act, we got to stand up, we have to be as courageous as Joseph and his brothers were to put the pieces back together, or here in this Haftarah and Ezekiel's image, to create the means by which the world can find its disparate pieces brought back together, both symbolically, like in a sculpture, as this sort of sounds like, and in reality. So why don't we take we're running nicely ahead of time. Why don't we take a moment, since there aren't that many of us, not to have a Torah study, but just to hear what you're sort of thinking this Shabbat. You can all unmute yourselves. You have the prerogative if you wish. And anyone who'd like to share with us a sort of philosophical thought, I would call it, please feel free to do so. Don't be shy. Susan?
I was I'm very gratified to hear what you have to say, Peter. I have been thinking for a very long time that when Israel speaks about, when Netanyahu speaks about defeating Hamas, Hamas is an idea. The only way to defeat a bad idea is with a good idea or a better idea. And as I said, very much appreciate what you had to say just now. Thank you.
But what I would say, Susan, is we have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
In other words, the criticism that is coming to us from young Jews, for example, not all, for sure, not all, but from many young Jews, is that in our schools, in our Hebrew schools and in our day schools and in our synagogues, we didn't tell them the more complicated story. we sort of told them, the line from one of the great Zionist thinkers who said that a people without a land is coming to a land without a people.
Mm.
And and I remember hearing that as a child, and it was like a clarion call. Wow, that's something. And then the image that I was taught was about the desert, where of course there were very few people. So it seemed to make a lot of sense. But I never really knew until I was an adult that the story was a little different. So, because if we're going to make a difference, we're going to have to start here. We cannot, we won't get anywhere if we don't begin in our own neighborhoods. And I hope that you'll invite Palestinians to come and speak at the synagogue and challenge them with things that we feel should be challenged, and hear them with the things that they have to say, because we will not, it's so incredible to me when you read a parasha like this and you see that the biblical author, either God, him or herself, or some very talented human beings, to have written a book that still sells after 3,000, 4,000 years. I mean, it's quite incredible. So to write a book in which you basically tell a story like this story, the brothers are jealous, they throw the guy into the pit, they think he's dead, they tell the father that he's dead. I mean, imagine this whole scene. And then a few years later, they end up standing in front of that brother, and he is the one who's willing to forgive them with all the power. I mean, these stories are our biblical stories, but they are also metaphors and lessons for how one has to try and live one's life, and not just.
You're a consummate educator. How do we move the dialogue today from sound bites to nuance, as you are proposing?
So that's a sort of longer conversation, but the answer is that that people are doing that. Whether it's let's take in your congregation, you certainly don't have any reason to have sound bites. You can have people come and speak, knowing that the conversation there may be elements of the conversation which will be uncomfortable, where even our interpretation or our reporting of facts may be different, and we would have to do our homework on our side. You can't any longer be satisfied, with sort of passing statements that we remember from Hebrew school. They have to be serious. But the real question is, what's the ultimate goal? If we in other words, this Torah gives us a mandate for behavior, and it seeks to create a world which is going to be more respectful of the human being, one human being to the other. That's its goal. Yeah, Arlene.
Yes, I wanted to mention that we have a big to-do going on right now in our congregation, and that is with this guy Ken Dorff. Have you read about what's happening? And he was on the front page of the New York Times last weekend on Saturday, and now there's been angry letters to the editor. I mean, he came and spoke about the Palestinians and was contradicting this invited speaker from the AJC, who he said was really presenting propaganda against the Palestinians. And I don't know if you are aware, but there's a huge thing going on now out in Sag Harbor. There was a letter from one of our congregants, Kriegsman, that was like slandering Ken Dorff, and I don't know what you know about what's going on, but
well, I'm probably a week old. Everybody in the world knows about the New York Times article, so we certainly heard about that piece. But I would sort of say, for this little conversation of ours as part of our Torah study, not to have I'm not the right one to have a communal discussion about this. I'm an outsider. But from the study of the Torah's point of view, what we see is that there is imaginative work necessary in order to bring opposing views together. That's what the Haftarah is. It's such a strange image that God would say to the prophet, take a tree and scratch a name in it, like we used to do when we were kids. Johnny loves Lily, it's pretty wild. And take that tree and put one antagonistic name on one tree, take another tree, put the antagonistic name of the other on that tree, put these trees next to each other, modern terms, graft them one to the other, and let a new tree grow, and let that be the symbol moving us forward. So I think the lesson of this Haftarah is, that we have work to do. That the prophetic work is that that change is not going to take place by itself. So I would say, and by the way, the other interesting thing is that in the Torah reading, ultimately, Joseph, I said this last night, Joseph says to the brothers, you didn't really throw me in the pit. God arranged all this. This was in the plan. He lets them, relax a little bit and gets off the hook. So if we apply that same logic to us, we've been thrown into a pit. And Rabbi Heschel used to teach that there is never a challenge that God has placed before us that God has not given us the capacity to meet. So therefore, the challenge at the moment is that we got work to do, and maybe this guy, Santa Claus, woke everybody up to the fact that that right below the surface, mostly there's ignorance. We all know that people don't know anything; they don't know history. But beyond that, what we usually mean by that is that they don't know our history. We, in turn, don't know anybody else's history, and that Middle East is a big place with a lot of important stories, and maybe we might be the ones capable of bridging this enormous gap if we knew more, if we were willing to take in information that's a little bit uncomfortable. It's that's the challenge.
Yeah, and I think our community is right in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's come to Sag Harbor, the challenge.
I think, by the way, I haven't heard anybody able to do it or even trying to do it. Maybe at Dartmouth, I shouldn't say nobody. Dartmouth, I think, did attempt to do so. When the Vietnam War protests began, the mechanism that was used to begin the protests was a teach-in, and the teach-in was 24 hours, and sometimes more than 24 hours, and every speaker had a time limit, and one speaker on one side and another speaker on the other side, to make sure that the audience on campus really knew what was going on. It was a beautiful model. It deteriorated, but it was a beautiful model. And for one generation, those of us old enough to remember it, we learned a great deal in that context. Marcia, you wanted to say something, and then
Yeah, my question is, how did it get to the New York Times? I mean, like, seriously, how did some little incident happen in a temple in Sag Harbor make it to the front page of the New York Times?
Santa Claus.
Huh?
Santa Claus.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody sent it there.
Well,
somebody
I found that to be really interesting, but other than that, it's not the discussion for today. So,
Right.
okay.
No, it was sent.
Yeah.
horribly.
All right, so I'm going to put the Torah and Haftarah away, and we're going to turn now. We're going to turn now back to the Siddur. I think we should do the Mishaberach now, because if somebody has an aliyah to the Torah, it is always a tradition to recite a prayer if they are in need of a prayer being recited. I don't. We're not together. Any of you who want to mention someone in your friends or family network who is ill and for whom we should be saying a prayer for healing, we certainly are including here the physical condition of the tragically held hostages, of the many wounded who are in the process, hopefully, of healing across Israel, the many innocents, as I said last night, in Gaza, who are really suffering in these completely ill-equipped hospitals, and all of our friends and neighbors who are ill in body or in soul. This is the moment for a prayer for all of them. Let's take a moment to just have those people in mind, and then we'll sing Mishaberach together. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBaracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBaracha La'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body,
Renewal
of spirit, and let us say,
Amen.
Bottom of 370, we symbolically put the Torah back. V'zot HaTorah Asher Moshe Israel al pi Adonai Yad Moshe. By the way, I mentioned a few things last night from my recent experiences in Sephardi synagogues. One of the more common characteristics as well is that they sing that verse right before they begin to read the Torah. In other words, they lift the Torah, and if you think about it, it makes a lot more sense, right? They lift the Torah before it's read, after it's undressed. They lift it up, they sing V'zot HaTorah. That's when you may see them pointing, with the corner of their talit or a finger to the text of the Torah, and then they set it down and read. I don't know the origin of the difference and who got there first, but it's really fascinating. Page 374, for placing the Torah symbolically back in the ark. Hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, Yiskam, Shemo Levado, Odo al Eretz V'Shamayim, Vayarem Keren Le'amo, Tila Lechol Chasidav, Livnei Israel, Am Kerovo, Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And now we'll sing Eitz Chaim He together. I pointed out last night, but some of you were not there, so I just want to repeat it because it's really quite fascinating. The last word on page 374 in Hebrew is kekedem, which is translated, Chadesh Yamenu kekedem, that famous line, renew our days as of old. So kedem is that which was the past. But the Hebrew root, kuf daled mem, is also the root of the word kadima, onward, forward. So this is, as I said last night, a great example of the remarkable and unique power of the Hebrew language, that in the same root letters, you can have a combination of the meaning of the past and the future, which of course philosophically means that you can't go forward without going back. Your reliance upon where you've come from is the determiner of where you're going. And it's a really powerful concept. So let's sing together Eitz Chaim Hi. Eitz Chaim Hi Lama Chazikim Ba V'tomcheha Me'ushar Deracheha Darchei Noam V'chol Netivoteha Shalom. Ashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Yekedem. Okay. Page 377. We'll read the prayer for the state of Israel. We obviously include here a very deep felt prayer for the return of these hostages, for an end to fighting and death, and for a turn in a different direction, which we so desperately need. O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, let's read together. Bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Avinu v'imotenu shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, barech et medinat Yisrael reshit semichat geulatenu. Hagen aleha be'evrat chastecha, ufros aleha sukat shlomecha. Ushlach orcha v'amitcha l'rasheha, soreha v'yoatzeha. V'taknem b'yetzat tova milfanecha, v'natata shalom ba'aretz, v'simchat olam liyoshveha, v'nomar amen. And on page 376, let's read together at the bottom of the page. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and may our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. Okay. So we'll turn to page 586 for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigayei haratzot, Velo samanu kamishpechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vigoralenu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtachavim, umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Shehu notesh shamayim v'yosei haaretz, 588. Umoshav yikaro v'shamayim mima'al. Ushchinatu zo, ushchinatu zo. V'gavhem meromim. Hu Eloheinu ein od. Emet malkeinu efes ulato. Kakatuv v'torato. V'yadatayom, v'yadatayom, v'hashevota elevavecha. Hi Adonai hu ha'Elohim, b'shamayim ima'al, v'al ha'aretz, mitachat einod. Page 591. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Let me read the names of those we remember before reciting Kaddish today. Isabel Becker, Bert Biderman, Julian Busgang, Morton Schwatzky, Beverly Deshevsky, Deborah Fogarty, Gerald Goldsmith, Dr. Sam Gould, Dorothy Klein, Sean Leibowitz, Samuel Moskowitz, Jeffrey Nagelberg, Marvin Schreier, Walter Schwab, Barbara Strasser, Fania Verrett, David Weinstein, and Augusta F. Axelrod, Tessie Bender, Fred Eber, Iago Galston, Beatrice Gruber, Philip Heller, Sylvia Honig, Rose Kaplowitz, Bertha Karp, Renee Kelman, Victor Kessler, Mary Kirshner, Vera Lee, Leah Levine, Emily Levy, William Littman, Michael London, Bob Matlick, Barry Metzger, Jacob Oberman, Morris Peskowitz, Sam Prober, Rudolph Proper, Marvin Schreier, Harold Sender, Amy Elizabeth Shapiro, Meyer Jacob Simon, Philip Spiegel, Pearl Weinstein, Nat Zimmerman. For those who are saying Kaddish, please stand if you are able and join me on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach leolam uliomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran b'yalama v'yimru amen. Yehei shalomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'meromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. You may be seated. So I had a few announcements last night. One was for Dan's class on Wednesday and for Rabbi Levin's class, I think, on Tuesday. But I can't seem to locate where that page went. So I will ask that on Tuesday you'll all get a reminder in the mail so you'll know what's taking place. We, of course, want to wish all the Christian members of our own community and of the broader Sag Harbor community a very Merry Christmas tomorrow night and on Monday, and to all of our Christian neighbors, both around our own neighborhoods and around the world. And hopefully the spirit that hovers over Christmas of peace will be a spirit that can transfer itself to all those places where there is fighting and war, particularly in our Jewish homeland, in Israel and in Gaza at the moment. Really something very sad and tragic. After the service at 12 o'clock, you received a separate link for a Torah study with Ruth Joseph, which will be fantastic, particularly given the power of this parasha. So I urge you, we're giving you a 15-minute break to walk home. Oh, you don't have to walk home. Well, to go get a drink, maybe even a real drink, because this parasha may need it, and then to study with Ruth. I want to thank you all for being so patient and understanding with me, given particularly this morning the fact that I can't just get up, take a shower, and sing. You know, gotta warm up, which I didn't do. It's not vodka; it's just water. You know, and I want to wish you all very well. Happy New Year. Hope you get your rabbi back next week, which will be much better.
No.
And I'll recite Kiddush. Last night I showed you all. I brought a really magnificent Kiddush cup made by the potter Robert Lipkin.
Beautiful.
Robert Lipnick, whose brother Jonathan is a very dear friend of mine. He's a really remarkable artist and potter, and just say a quick Kiddush here for you. Al Kain Beirach Adonai et Yom HaShabbat Vayikadshehu Savri Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Borei Peri Hagafen.
Amen.
Okay, so Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom. Nice to see all of you.
Thank you so much. Oh,
You're
Thank
welcome.
you were great, Peter.
You're welcome.
Terrific.
Peter,
Terrific,
Peter, it's a
Peter.
blessing and a privilege to spend
Yes.
this time with you. Thank you
this was
so much.
wonderful. Thank you so
welcome. Thank
much.
Thank you very much. I
Have a
agree.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I
Sagas
get to see all of you soon.
See you guys later. See you guys later.
Bye.